Welcome everyone to another deal case study. Welcome to the channel. On this channel, we like to break down real estate transactions from start to finish. I know a lot of people take a lot of value from this stuff, so we're just going to dive right into this deal case study. This one is in Overland, Missouri, here in St. Louis. And if you're watching this from Missouri or St. Louis, you probably know where that is. You probably know we wholesaled this. This was a great rental property. I'm excited for our buyer who bought it. They know how much money we made. We're going to dive into the numbers here in a second. But what I want to do is share a resource that if you don't know anything else about real estate, you're watching this video, you've never closed a deal, you're struggling, your pipeline's kind of drying up, or you're just kind of missing guidance. One thing that I always fall back onto is a couple things. And I'm going to dive into that here is usahousedata.com and also Driving for Dollars. But usahousedata.com is what I use because I'm not a real estate agent. If you're watching this, you're an agent, you have access to the MLS, you have access to all of this good data, or Remine or one of these other softwares. This might not be for you, but USA House Data is our partnership with an affiliate company to get you in front of the data you need as a real estate investor. And what I mean by that is property ownership information. You can confirm that on the local tax records. You can run comps. This is a very powerful software that you really need. I use it every single day in my business because I'm not sitting here logging into the MLS every single day. I use it on the fly. There's a mobile app on your phone, and you can skip trace any property owner within the software. I know as investors, we kind of get the mentality of let's buy software for this, let's solve this problem with this software, let's have a CRM that does this, let's skip trace a property over here, and stuff doesn't really communicate with each other. And what I love about USA House Data is it's all kind of built into one hub. It's one software. It's one spot that you can go to pull data. You can pull affidavits of ownership. You can pull mortgage amounts, which is insanely powerful because I know we personally scrub most of our lists for a good chunk of equity on every deal that we try to go take down because we don't do a lot of creative finance and they just take a lot of time. So that's just our personal business model. So we use USA House Data to scrub our lists with equity, and we use it to run comps. We use it to skip trace. We use it to automate list management. So what I mean by that is a lot of properties that you're going to be targeting that have a distressed situation and they're going to be behind in taxes. They're going to be in pre-foreclosure. They're going to have a number of other things that are distressed qualification that us as real estate investors love to see because they're usually deals. There's something going on. There's a problem we can solve, right? And so what an automated list management software is going to do for you is take a property that you might be sending marketing out the door. You're sending direct mail, you're cold calling, you're texting, you're doing all these other things. You're maybe even door knocking them because it's a good lead. And say that property that was behind in taxes gets caught up on taxes or it gets listed on the MLS. Automated list management will automatically filter out those properties that are probably getting the pain solved from the problem that you were trying to solve as an investor. They might have caught up their taxes, their pre-foreclosure status might have been wiped out because they borrowed some money from a family or whatever. The problem is no longer there to solve. And so we don't want to keep spending tons and tons of marketing dollars and effort and time trying to contact those leads. And this deal case study is a perfect example of that. And I'll dive into it right now. So we got this lead, like I said earlier, Driving for Dollars, but we also found it on a high equity absentee list via USA House Data. And why is that important is because Driving for Dollars leads are good leads. Definitely, they're some of the best of all time, but sometimes you're not too sure what's going on with them. So we plug those addresses into USA House Data. We find the equity, we find the ownership, we can skip trace them, and we get in contact. We see what's actually going on. We see when the last time the property was sold, and a number of other things. But that's the first thing I do with Driving for Dollars leads because I don't want to spend my time as an investor spinning my wheels in circles on a property that has been quit claim deeded 20 times and the owner is out of the country and we probably can't get a hold of them necessarily overnight. There's just other things that you can do and weave a different web. They're going to be less targeted. And you can also use USA House Data to stack different types of leads together and pull different types of lists and figure out where the duplicates are. And I'm not going to get into that right now, but it's just a very powerful resource as far as list management and list building, which if you're watching this, you know, list building is part of the sexy part of real estate if you really like data, because that's where deals come from, unless you're hitting the streets and door knocking and do something like a proactive marketing channel like Bandit Signs or one of those marketing channels. And so let's break down this deal from start to finish. It's really straightforward, and that's why I wanted to position this as somebody who might not know how to close their first deal, or they just kind of are doing this part-time. This business is really not that complicated, and this property is a perfect example of that. I took a lead I found Driving for Dollars. I plugged it in to a software, a USA House Data. I found out it was owed free and clear. The mailing address was not of the property, which means it's absentee mailing. They owned it free and clear, like I said, and there was only 2 decision makers, which were married, which is for whatever reason, our data shows that is a different type of lead than if there's joint tenants and other stuff like that. And I won't won't get off on a tangent on that. But don't overcomplicate this stuff. We just simply cold called them and reached out. And there's just simple pre-qualifying questions I always ask. There's 5 or 6 of them. What's your timeline to sell? What's your asking price? What's the overall condition of the property? Are there other decision makers? Which on this one, there was a brother-in-law who says he was a real estate agent. We still don't really know if he was. He didn't act like one, but either way, he was the gatekeeper, so to speak, to the information that we were relaying to the family who was actually making the decision. What was cool about this lead is they were ready to sell when we called, and I wouldn't have necessarily got in front of that lead as fast as I did if I just plugged it into my Driving for Dollars list and just put it in a dialer or send it to a VA to text it or whatever these other various marketing channels that I know a lot of you guys do, which are good marketing channels. But when you get 3 or 4 pieces of information from a software like USA House Data, and you can see that, man, I should really call them because this has absentee, high equity, or own free and clear. It's a individual owner. It's an absentee mailing address, like I said, and there's no LLC involved. They might not be a professional real estate investor. Might just be a secondary property. It's definitely run down. I found it Driving for Dollars. I want to get in front of these people faster. Those are just 4 buckets that automatically make me want to pick up the phone. Gets me excited. And on this particular deal, we made some money because we did that. And the initial appointment is we pulled up, and the first thing you notice is it's a great rental property, right? It looks like it needs some love. The roof is pretty old, but we couldn't see in the windows. I actually got permission from the owner to go drive by the property probably a year ago, and this property was back in our pipeline because they weren't ready to sell at the time. And so those kinds of things, when you first find a property and you stack the motivation, you really got to figure out if they're ready to go. Like I said earlier, what's your timeline to sell? They weren't ready when I first contacted them. But if you notice on the right-hand side of this picture, you may or may not be able to see it, is the property next door is perfectly rehabbed. So don't lose focus on just this picture and say, oh man, that house needs a ton of work. Anybody watching this knows that that's a gold mine rental right there. And then point out the pain when someone is a procrastinator, like this guy was. They just didn't want to get on the same page. They lived 2 hours away. The family really didn't have an agreed upon price. Like, they had thrown around the idea. So it's your job as an investor to really steer that conversation and figure out why they're procrastinating. So this property had been sitting vacant for several years. And so you got to figure out what are the next steps for them to actually sign a piece of paper, sign a contract, do business with you. And if you don't know how to steer the conversation, that statement, just ask them, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what do I have to do to earn your business? It looks like this property's been sitting for a long time. I'm buying property in the area. What am I missing here? It's a perfect mislabeling question, and people are going to tell you why they either are going to do business with you or why they're just not ready to move forward yet. Easy peasy. Don't overcomplicate it. And so the exterior photos, this is a picture on the left side of the back of the house. Nice big sunroom, and then this big turnaround driveway with a exterior garage, a detached garage, which is really great to see. A lot of neighborhoods like this don't have this stuff, but this particular property had a lot of good things going for it. And these pictures are great. I mean, like I said, you can't see in any of the windows. So, I mean, I tried. He really wanted a sight unseen offer. And I gave him a ballpark. I said, hey man, I don't know. Like, I can give you a ballpark, but it's going to be very conservative, assuming the entire inside of the property needs to be rehabbed, which he told me it was partially down to the studs. It was definitely in worse condition than he told me it was, which, if you're watching this, is usually how it goes. So here's the interior photos, pretty much down to the studs, like I just said. It was funny because the brother had been staying here or something and was slowly working on this property for years. They still had the electricity on, which is another indicator when I drove by this property and knew after they told me on the phone that it was vacant for a number of years, but yet they're still paying to keep the electric on. Tells me they haven't fully let go of this thing yet. Like, they still think that there's going to be some end of the road rehab for them. And you can look at that the other way, is they're just delusional and they're keeping the power on for whatever number of reasons, or they want to keep people out of the house to make people think it's occupied. There's so many reasons people leave the power on, but I always point that out on appointments or on the phone or whenever I can in a situation like this, when I'm like, hey, why is the power on still? Like, this has been years. I mean, how much did that cost you? $1,200 for the last 3 years. I mean, it's a pain point you can point out, because it's a point of pain they're going to have to keep paying on. And for some people, it will trigger. Other people, they're just going to say, it's okay, I can afford it, I'm not worried about it, which is what these people said. But you can see on the right-hand picture here that there's a stack of drywall. We ended up getting that with the house. Nothing in these pictures really got removed. I think he took the TV, he took the fridge or something else, but it's pretty much all junk. It was never anything we cared about anyways. And a funny part about this picture is the left side where the Husky bags, the grocery bags are, or the trash bags are, is sitting on top of the piece of plywood where you walk down to the downstairs, and we didn't even know that was there at first. We didn't even think there was access to that basement until we went outside and walked through the side of the house. It was kind of funny. But here's more interior photos. That bathroom is hilarious. If you look closely at that bathroom, the tiles all crooked, the floor, there's no trim, nothing matches. It's just so funny. There's one dark light bulb in there. There's like a cutout recess. It just makes no sense. And so that whole bathroom's got to get redone, whether it's the way it is now or it's gutted like the rest of the house. It's going to end up looking like the rest of the house before it's said and done. And then this right side is that big breezeway sunroom kind of thing sticking off the back of the house, which was an addition at one point. A lot of the houses in this neighborhood do have that, but it's kind of up to your discretion how you want to use it, because it's not really, it's a big, nice like dining room, living room, sunroom. It's all connected and open to the house. It's open to the master. But what really needed to happen on this property was to reconfigure it to have a bigger master bedroom. So it is only a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, but it really, really could be configured back into a 3, which I don't know if that's what our end buyer is going to do, because we did wholesale this property, and I'll get into that here in a second. But here's more pictures. Like I said, the left side is the outside walk down to the basement. We didn't really know that there was access to it other than walking outside, which, as you know, if you're buying this, you've ever bought property, that's kind of not ideal, especially if it's where your laundry and stuff is like that. So nobody wants to walk outside to do, when they're buying a house or renting a house, it's kind of a huge rental point to have indoor laundry. You don't need to go outside for. And then the picture on the right is looking up to it's right in the living room, just like this other picture here. I'll go back. It's the same picture as on the left here, just further over, you can see the stairs. But the stairs go up to a very short, almost unusable landing for like a kid's playroom. So you really need to cut out some of the roof that's up there to even have it be usable. You have to duck down to even get up to the top of it. So I know there's going to be issues with our buyer trying to get occupancy with that. I'm not too sure what they're going to do. I wasn't 100% sure on it because we didn't really do our due diligence on a rehab side of it because we wholesaled it. And so the deal logistics, this property or this picture on the right is in the basement. It's kind of funny. All the insulation on the roof's it's all turned backwards. It's all the wrong way. It's supposed to be flipped the other way. So this was a giant DIY house. Somebody had spray painted the walls, some weird stuff at one point, but it was overall a really good house. Cinder block foundation, which are not the best. But once again, we found this property driving for dollars. It was on several lists. You know, we skip traced at usahousedata.com, the owner, and then we called them and we had sent them a text too. The text bounced back because it was landlines. I ended up getting in touch with the dad, the brother, and then the gatekeeper, so to speak, who said he was a real estate agent, but it's all said and done now. I don't know his actual role. He was just a confidant to them. So they had been contacted by a lot of people, as you can imagine, because of the list that they were on. But where you separate, where you separate yourself from the pack is do something of value for the seller. I offered to go, huge gold nugget here. I offered to go check on the property for them, knowing they were 2 hours south. And I got him to tell me on the phone, well, it's been a while since we've been there. I don't have the time to do the rehab, yada, 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 whatever the life story is. I just knew that if I offered to go check on the property, which technically is a walkthrough for me because I'm trying to get rehab costs. I'm trying to figure out how motivated they really are. And I got the appointment and I did something of value. I sent him pictures of the outside of the property. I said, just everything looked copacetic to you. Nothing looks vandalized. He said, yep. And I said, okay, well, let me know when I can get in the property. Instantly, all 20 other people who've sent postcards or called or whatever are next in line to us because you did something of value. We teach that. We tell people to do that on every single appointment, every single seller, if you can possibly position it. Some people don't want help because they don't know you. They're weird about it. They just want you to leave them alone. But people like this, on this deal, he was so happy I offered to do that. He didn't actually believe me that I said I would do that. But it's something to be persistent about and just leave a note next to your desk that, hey, I'm gonna do something of value. It's kind of a non-negotiable for your business, and I'm gonna do something of value to every person I talk to, whether I do the deal or not, and throw that statement into there. So we walked this property one time before we put it under contract. We did have multiple offers. Because it is a really desired part of town here in St. Louis for rentals. Cap rates are really high. Cash on cash is really high. And like I said, this is a 2-bed, 1-bath, 1184 square feet. So you see what I mean by it's a 2-bed, but it's a bigger 2-bed. It's almost 1,200 square feet. So there's a lot of stuff you could do with this. And once again, I pulled all that data from usahousedata.com, and I also check it with the county tax records, and they're very, very rarely ever wrong. The tax records is actually more inaccurate than any software I've ever used, including USA House Data. So the deal flow, we found this list stacking. We skip trace. And what I mean by list stacking is it was on It was on a high equity absentee list. It was on a tired landlord list. It was on a high equity list that we pulled a long time ago, and it was on a driving for dollars list. I might be missing one, but the point is, it was on several different lists, which is really good when we're trying to pinpoint who's ready to do a deal as far as that's concerned. And so we skip traced them through USA House Data, and we cold called for months, honestly, before they even opened up. And I had to get in touch with his son to coordinate the showings and the paperwork, like I had said. So once we got all through that, we did the deal flow. I had some rapport built on my ability to go talk to them and go do something of value. And I went to the property and I took pictures, and it was months. That's what I mean by that. It was months after that we finally got the appointment. But I knew walking that property that we had a leg up on everybody else because I offered to go do something. Now, an out-of-state investor, somebody doing virtual deals, you wouldn't be able to offer that kind of solution, but you could offer other things. Just get creative. So we finally got the walkthrough after relentless follow-up. We knew what they were asking because I had been talking to them for so long and just pounding out rehab numbers and ARVs and comparable properties, which once again, I knew the numbers from USA House Data. And so we probably, we got the walkthrough, and I just knew once we could get inside the property, we could probably make it work. So just kind of reverse engineer the whole thing here. If you knew that about a lead you're working, why you would never give up on it. And I knew that about this lead. So the seller was asking $45,000 for the property. We thought it was a fair asking price. It was a little high, but everybody asks more than they're willing to take. It's just human, psychology 101. You ask 100, you're willing to take actually your bottom dollar is 80. It's just what everybody does. So do not miss out on appointments because you don't think people are willing to negotiate. On this particular deal, though, they did not negotiate because they knew it was a fair price. They knew their numbers because they had their partner, their family member who says they're an agent who was pulling data for them, which is totally fine. It actually worked in our favor. There was no weirdness when we were able to pay the asking price. So we thought it was a fair asking price, a little bit high just because the house was a little more run down than we thought. He said it was down to the studs in a couple places, not the way that you just saw in the pictures, just how much repairs it needed. So we tried to negotiate, like I said, but they wouldn't budge because they had so many offers. When you have a stack of postcards, it's called leverage. When somebody wants to negotiate with you, they're just going to say, hey, I'll just call the next 10 people and see, I'm sure I can get my number. And that's what they could have done. So there was no point in walking away from this deal. So the actual numbers. Our purchase price, like I just said, $45,000. We walked a couple of our buyers through this property. We sent pictures to a couple other buyers. I personally, my purchase price on a rehab for me would have been a little bit lower than 45. But I knew we have hungry buyers. There's always somebody to buy a deal in these neighborhoods. So we knew, once again, like I said, we just needed to get inside the property. So we got an offer for 56 and we took it. It was a good offer because we had $11,000 spread on a wholesale right there. Our projected ARV, do not get hung up on this stuff based on price per square foot, comparable sold properties, 2 beds, 3 beds, rental rates, all this other stuff you can get through usahousedata.com was 105,000. Now you're looking at this like, man, if somebody puts 56 plus 45 plus fees, holding costs, all this other stuff, it's not really a deal. Well, that's just our projected ARV. It doesn't mean it's the same as everybody else's. Somebody else might be looking at this as a 135 house, which is totally fine. I would not blame them. I just know that it doesn't benefit me at the end of the day to say something's worth more than it is. It actually takes away from our business. So our estimated rehab cost was $39,000. Always budget more. You might be looking at those pictures thinking it's more, but this is a rental neighborhood. You do not need to blow these things out. You do not need to put granite countertops in them. You don't need farm sinks. You don't need nice stack washer and dryers. You don't need all this crazy stuff. It's a rental neighborhood that's going to make you good rent for eternity. You do not need to go in there and blow this thing out like a giant rehab. The house that was next door that was over rehabbed, in my opinion, was a flip, and it was a very strong comp. I wish I remember the numbers. It was in the hundreds. That's why I know whoever bought this is getting a good deal. It was essentially the same layout, but they had really overdone it. I mean, it was beautiful. And I love that. That's the first thing you notice when you pull up to a property you're trying to buy is the next door neighbors. And when it's perfectly rehabbed, it's going to work in your favor for price per square foot, for comps, for being able to sell it for more down the road. So 39,000, very simple, easy rehab. It doesn't look that way from the photos, but it really was. You just got to refix all the electrical outlets, do the drywall, redo the interior doors, flooring, and then the kitchens and the baths, which we're going to get taken out anyways. So, you can look at those pictures one of two ways. The property really needed to be gutted, or it was already gutted for me and saved me some time and money. So our actual profit, $11,000. Love that. So here's some screenshots of the contracts and the assignments and the actual check when we picked it up. Purchase price, top picture here, $45,000, $1,000 earnest money. We closed that Integrity Title company here in St. Louis. We close deals there all the time. And then here, this middle picture is exchange and compensation for $11,000, which was our consulting agreement. We did not double close. We did not assign this. We just wrote the contract directly from our buyer to the seller, and we took a fee for a negotiated price because we've done 100 deals with this buyer, and there is never any confusion. There's no trust issues. They knew what we were making. They're okay with it. They got a great property for them to keep in their rental portfolio. And then at the bottom here is a picture of the check, $11,000. We picked it up April 21st. And it's just a great, solid deal. It took a lot of follow-up, but we would do this deal over and over and over again. And I love these deals because the seller knew what they wanted. There was no weird, funny business. We actually learned how to talk about counting cards at the casino from one of the guys. It was pretty funny, and it was a pretty good relationship that we built with the guy. So in conclusion, every seller, every house, every situation has a problem you're solving. In this particular situation, they just wanted to be done. We hit them at the right time, and we didn't stop hitting them. They wanted to work with somebody they trusted, but they wanted to work with somebody they could also be relatable to. And we didn't go in there and beat them up about the house. We didn't really try to negotiate them that hard. We agreed everything they said was very in line with things that we were seeing in the market, in line with all the data we were pulling, everything that we wanted to see. They were in line with, which is rare and is also not rare because it happens a lot more than you think. Every deal is not prying. Every deal is not stress. Every deal doesn't have to be some crazy event that happens. Some of these deals are just ready, and you just need to stay in front of them for the right amount of time for when they actually are ready to sign paperwork and be done. So this business is not about you. It's not about me. I made this about the sellers. I made this about their strip mall that they own in Barnhart, Missouri, how they can get away and not have to keep coming back here, how I'll check on the property for them. You don't make these deals about you. It's not about me. So you got to make sure that you can solve some sort of problem or stand out from a position of value, like I said before. So ask the hard questions and leave open loops. I always say that because, you gotta be, hey, Mr. Seller, if you're not going to sell this property, what do you think you're going to do with it? Hey, Mr. Seller, you got seller A bucket and seller B bucket. I see this in seller A and seller B bucket's doing this. And I think seller A bucket's the bucket you want to be in. And then just list out all the negative and positives. I mean, it's like a decision chart. You have to do for some people. And it's all open loops. You got to get them answering your questions. You need to ask as many questions as you possibly can and leave it all open-ended. Do not ask yes or no questions. Do not, it's just very easy to get caught up in the wrong questions. And you're going to start catching on to that stuff. If you're watching this, you haven't done a deal, just focus on lead generation, driving for dollars, USA house data, and pulling lists and stacking equity and trying to cold call and skip trace all these properties and get in touch with the people who are ready to sign. They are out there. The deal of the century happens every single week, I promise you. So this deal was pretty straightforward with repairs and what the seller wanted and needed. And would I do this deal again? Absolutely. I just said that. So, and the cool part about this is, like I said, they own a strip mall. They own a bunch of acreage out in the country here in Missouri too. And I'm going to still talk to them and see, if they're going to sell. They're selling a property that's on a corner lot. That's $1 million lot out in Troy. It's a commercial lot, and they've been holding on to it for years. There's new builds building up to it, and there's opportunity there. And so you have to stay in contact with a lot of these people even after the deals you do, because you're going to learn throughout the process that they have other things of value to you as a business owner. You could potentially broker that deal too and try to help them sell that down the road. So there's so many good things that come from pulling lists. There's so many good things that come from driving for dollars. And just if you do not know anything else, rewatch these deal case studies I do, subscribe to the channel, and definitely check out usahousedata.com because that is what we use every single day in our business.